Evening. Today, well, around Australia, there were three Group 1 races in Melbourne, the Oakley Plate, Blue Diamond, and whatever the other race was. And in Sydney, at Warwick Farm, we had the Chipping Norton Stakes Day. And, well, we'll get to that meeting in a minute. We'll talk about the bias. Go back very quickly to Gosford today, a week ago, which was the provincial meeting. We saw a situation there where the track was a softy 7. The rail was in the normal position. There was no wind, but the inside section of the track was not worth a caser. And we didn't have a leader win all day. And if you stayed near the fence, you were in awful trouble. There were some winners that were on the fence at some stage of the race, but most certainly if they stayed there, they wouldn't have won. They were able to get off the fence and greet the judge. But staying close to the fence wasn't the place to be at Gosford today, a week ago, the provincial meeting. We went to Rosie Hill. We went to Rose Hill during the week. And at Rose Hill on Wednesday, the 25th of Feb, we had a soft 5. The track was given out a softy 5, and the rail was 8 metres out. The wind stayed in the same direction, and about the same speed, or the same kilometres all day, which might have been about 20 odd, and that was from was more or less half behind them up the straight. It didn't have any effect on any of the races. And early in the day, when we saw Fell Swoop, who had won its last 3 down the Canberra area, go straight to the lead, and the second horse came off its back along the fence and failed to catch it by 0.3 of a length. And then we saw the next race, race 2, the favourite from barrier 1 lead on the fence and win by a length of 3/4, and the second horse sitting 3 back on the fence and come along the fence and run second. And then the dogs were barking that the 18 pence is the place to be, because looking at horses who were trying to make up ground down the outside, it seemed to be a little bit difficult for them. And then the next race, of course, we saw Gay Waterhouse have an unraced runner who drew barrier 1, Raphael's Cat, and we put it up a $7.50 chance, and it started 5-2. It was 13-2 to 5-2. And there was some section 1 on it, an absolute bucket full of section, and it didn't lead on the fence. I own the lead gate. She couldn't hold the fence, and number 10, Navajo Navua missed, ridden by James McDonald, trained by Chris Waller, who drew barrier 3. It was able to cross it early and find the 18 pence, and Raphael's Cat sat on its outside and was a little bit too strong, only by 0.4 of a length, and was able to get the chocolates, and as I say, was sensationally back from 13-2 into 5-2, but you wouldn't see it. As much as $9, 8-1 was given in the outside ring. Then all of a sudden we saw, well, the winner did save ground on the fence during the race, Sweet Fire, who was having a second race start, trained by Chris Waller, ridden by James McDonald, saved ground on the fence, hooking off heels after straightening, and the second horse was on its outside coming down the side and eased off heels after turning, having a little bit of a bump with another runner. But the winner, after saving ground on the fence, was a little bit too strong to finish to beat it by a length. And the second horse was very easy in the betting. Went up 7-4, talking about heavens above, and got out to as much as $5.50 at the end of betting. Was 7-4 to 9-2. The winner was very well backed. After opening up $6, got out to $9, but only started its opening quote at $6. And then all of a sudden, well, no, what am I saying? All of a sudden, that was the fourth race. The fifth race came along, and we all thought that Flying Sebring would lead, which it did. It was their favourite, was the evening money favourite, and trained by Chris Waller, ridden by Tommy Terrific Berry. And the second pick, Salford Art, trained also by Chris Waller. It sat straight on its back. It was the second pick. One was evening money. We bet $2.10, 10 for 9. After opening 10 to 9, got into evens at the end of betting. And the second pick, Salford Art, opened up 9-4, 9-4 bar, and got out to 7-2. It was 9-4 to 7-2 at the finish of betting. It came off its back. Favourite led. Second pick got off its back and beat it by 1.3 lengths. Was 5.3 lengths away to the third. So, but interestingly, Tommy Terrific Berry, he got to about 5 or 6 horses off the fence halfway down the straight and stayed in that position. And all of a sudden, well, that was race 5. Race 6, the winner at one stage was on the fence, a big result for bookies, Diver Tier, and was held up going for a split around about the furlong pole, but stuck its bib out right on the line to give the captains a bit of a relief, because we were all feeling goddamn sick by this time. But it got there, and the track did the inside after those first 5 races start to be, or the first 4 start to become a bit chopped up. Well, it appeared that way because the last 3 races, the winners all started to, well, the last 2 races, the winners, the second last winner came down the outside after getting a good run, and the winner of the last, another big result for the captains, and was on the fence, I must admit, in 3 back on the fence, running in 6th position. It did get off the fence, turning for home, and stuck its bib out at the right time to give the captains a huge result in the last. I'm talking about Crown Moss. It was $26 out to 41. Work out that little bit of change in the track as you may. Now, we got to Hawkesbury on Thursday, and the track, well, it was a joke. How come they didn't, how come the Stipes never changed the condition of the track at Hawkesbury on Thursday? It was given out a good 4. The penetrometer was only 4.91. As you're driving into the track, and where the road that I use when I come into the track, God, there was a lot of water lying around the side of the road. I said to myself, gee whiz, they've given this track out a good 4. We all thought it was a bit sus. The rail was in a normal position. There was no wind. If it was very light. And the 18 pence, if you stayed on the fence, on the turn and in the straight, you didn't have a 1,000,000 to 1 chance. You couldn't win, and it was very evident. You only have to have a Captain Cook for yourself, and you'll see as the day went on, they got wider and wider and wider in the straight. It was a beautiful ride by the pumper in the last race. He saved ground coming down the side on the winner. I'm a Special Keeper from barrier 1. But in the back straight, he was on the fence, and there was nothing wrong with the fence in the back straight. But then when they hit that bend going out the back straight and coming down the side, he was able to ease off the fence, get in between runners. By the time they were straightening up, he was more or less 3 wide. No, he wasn't. He was in between runners, but they were well off the fence, and it trotted him. As I say, if you stayed near the fence at Hawkesbury, you were a shot duck. And as I said, go back to Gosford, of course, there were no leaders that won. Now, we got to the farm today. This is the opening of the Autumn Carnival, the Autumn Carnival, leading up to the Slipper, and then, of course, the championships at Warwick. And I hear for the Slipper, we've got Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie's daughter coming out um, to Rose Hill for that day. Now, I wouldn't know, couldn't pick her out in a lineup, but um, what is it? Why would you get Lionel Richie's? I don't know. Someone told me. I asked. They said she's been on some reality TV show with Paris Hilton or something. Is it to get young girls who all they do is drink, and of course they don't bet. They do bet. They bet in pennies to the races to sell them the pen and ink. What is the story? What you think that why doesn't someone just fair dinkum bite the bullet, and say, look, at the championships, I tell you what we'll do. Oh, and also, they say, well, he's Peter. I wouldn't. Never spoken a word to Peter Sterling in my life, but we all know he was a great football player. And I said, well, why would you get a football player coming out to the Golden Slipper Carnival? Like, is that the mix that they're hoping for? I'll get all the girls who are going to come out and see Lionel Richie's daughter, whatever her name is, and all the boys who are the football players come out and say, oh yes, and they got the mix for the boys and the girls. Well, why don't you, as I say, why doesn't someone bite the bullet and say, why don't we get, let me think, why don't we get, well, you could get Bill Waterhouse to come to the championships. Bill wouldn't, you wouldn't have to give Bill that much section, a couple of million. You give, what about getting, getting out Lester Piggott? Lester had signed, Lester's autograph would be worth the best rider the world's ever seen. I'd like to get Lester's autograph. Lester had come out. He wouldn't pay his own fare, I would tell you now. You'd have to fly him out, but you wouldn't have to give him that much section, and you must have to give him, say, a couple of million as well. Get who else can you get? Barney Curley to come. Barney Curley had come out. I'd love Barney's signature. I gave him a lift one day back from Wyong back to Hornsby when he came out here. Gee whiz, that was in the early '80s. What a good man Barney is. Get some people who are who've got a background in racing, and you might get some people interested in the punt and so forth. But fair income, I can't understand it. We went to this meeting today at Warwick Farm. Wasn't it wonderful? They upgraded the track from a softy 5 to a goody 4. Oh, from a softy 5 to a goody 4, the rail was in the normal position. We all said going there, well, I wonder what the 18 pence is going to be like with the rail in the normal position, that little bit of moisture in the ground. They didn't have that much rain out there. They missed that big storm on Friday that hit the coast in North Sydney. It was torrential rain. The gutters overflowed. But apparently only had 3 mils out of Warwick Farm. But the inside, how dare they? Well, fair dinkum, how did they upgrade it to a? Oh, I see what they did. They said on the on the ambulance track on the outside it was a goody 4. We left a softy 5 middle of the track, and on the fence we made it a heavy 20, because if you were near the fence, what a shame. In the last race, Ernest, who drew barrier Mother Magoo, it drew barrier 2 and never left the 18 pence. What about if it drew it outside alley? It would have come off their heels and most probably won. It went straight through on the fence, whereas the winner, Press Report, drew 12 of 12 and they said they were going to try and ride it closer with cover, and it went back to last and swooped and got the chocolates and caught Ernest. What a joke, upgrading the track to a 4 when Fanning and Simple Simon knew that the track was no good. It was a softy all day, and it was a quicksandy on the inside. The first race was we only bet 105% in the first race. It was very evident. Well, it wasn't evident, I suppose. Well, yes, it was. What am I talking about? It led early, the predicted leader phases. Gee whiz, it ran a race ridden by Bowl Blake Shin, and going down the back, he allowed Dreamfolk, who finished up running last, crossing phases and going to the lead, stayed on the fence, and as I say, ran last, beaten 8.8. It wasn't 30, one chance into $26. But Phases, who was a $31 chance, after it was crossed, was crossed by Dreamfolk, when they turned for home, clever Bowl Blake Shin, he moved to the middle of the track, and he finished up only being beaten 0.1 of a length. The favourite, who tagged the leaders all the way in third position, getting a beautiful run, was very disappointing, even though it only got beat 0.3 of a length. Had the drop on the leaders, but still couldn't even get past Phases, and was very disappointing, I thought. But then the runner that sat last and got to the outside and ducking in under pressure in the straight was the winner, Sansalike, who got that benefit of swooping. And that was the story of the day. It was the mother and the glory of the day. You couldn't sit wide without cover. Get a suck up off the fence, well off the fence, behind runners, getting wide in the straight was the pattern of the day. The next winner, as I said last week, when it won the maiden race at Kembla Grange, Exosphere. Is it the Golden Slipper winner? Gee whiz. They say they're going to get the dentist. They're going to get the dentist to check out Exosphere's toothy pegs, because they say it more looks at least like a 3-year-old, if not a 4-year-old. But John O'Shea said, "Oh no, I've got the papers. I've got the Willie Capers. Don't you worry about that." And I'm telling you now, it's got stamped on it. It's a Mother Magoo. It's 2. And it drew barrier 1. Captors took a bit of a risk because of the alley, saying the inside was no good after watching the first, where they steered well away from the 18 pence. 10-9 out to 13-8. But at the finish, if you had up the 1.5 for 1, 6-4, they'd kill you for it. They'd stab you and skin you alive. And it started 11-8. James McDonald, he sat back in last position on the fence in the field of 7. When it took off, Sebring's son, who drew the outside alley, he just eased off the fence, was in third gear turning for home, got widest in the straight and said, "See you later," and won by 4 lengths. A very good win. The day this horse had its first start, Exosphere, at Rose Hill, ridden by Father Schofield, I think Father O'Shea was a little bit disappointed in Father Schofield, because that day the wind was a nor'westerly, and who's the runner that John Hawkes has got? Oh God, I forget his name, but it won on the same day. The runner that my boy Malachi, the horse that came from Queensland that Hawkes has won now, and he's had 3 starts for Hawkes and won the team Hawkes, and won the 3 our boy Malachi, and won 3 races. Well, that day Exosphere went around in the first race, and the wind was at 45 kilometres per hour straight into their face running down the side. And I think Father Schofield might have been roused at by Father O'Shea, because he said, didn't want him to lead, and he wanted to sit and to get to the outside and storm down the outside and win. But he ran into that wind, and of course ran seventh in a field of 8, not beaten far. But and the runner that won the race, and the horse that I think it was a roughie that won the race, Exosphere would carry it. And that day, as I say, the wind was 45 kilometres per hour into their face coming down the side. And by the time the last race came around, it was only 14 kilometres per hour, and not anywhere as severe, and you could be up near the lead and win. And I think even when our boy Malachi won, which was around about the 5th or 6th race from memory, the wind had even dropped a lot by then. And Exosphere went maybe close to a second faster its first 600 metres than our boy Malachi did that day. So Exosphere, you had to forget about that run. I marked it, even though it ran second last in that race, the field of 8. I took those wind affected reasons into my calculations, and I still marked it a clear favourite. Of course, we saw it last week go down to Kembla and have a warm-up for today, and it shot it in today. We only gave 103% there. Race 3, we only gave the neat 100, and well, you think Father Schofield didn't do the right thing here by Grumble and Grunters? I had a bad result on this. I think they're going to return always, Alison, $3.60, and that's the best luck. I was $4.40 when they jumped. I did an absolute shite house on this field. When it was 5-2, I was 11-4. When it was 5-2, I was 3s. And when it was $3.60, I was $4.40. I laid it at $3.50, I laid it at $3.60, $70, $80, $90, $4, $4.20, $4.40, and I just kept on writing and punching out. Not writing, you don't write your Jiminy Crickets these days, you punch them out of that machine. What a shame we don't still write our own Jiminy Crickets. Anyway, it sucked up from barrier 1. I said, he'll never escape here, Father Schofield. He's in there for the rest of his life. But when they turned for home, the runner from Queensland, Tibragarbin Miss, it led and stuck on very well and was near the fence all the way. So its run has been very good. And it was sensationally backed. They knew what they were doing. Opened up $17, got out to 26. They only started about a $14 or $15 chance. The runner trained by Gay, Speak Fondly, sat on its outside all the way, managed to get past it, but only by a half a length at the finish of the race. And tucked in behind them from barrier 1 was the winner, Always Illusion, who was a good win first up. And when they turned for home, the runner that was 3 wide outside them, Circular, had dropped off. And Father Schofield, anybody could have done the same thing. Not that he's not a good rider, Father Schofield. He eased off the heels, and when you see the head on, when he got out into the middle of the track, he was and hung out under a little bit of pressure. He was a good 6 horses away from the second horse, Speak Fondly. I thought Clever Karen should erred a little bit. He should have gone a bit wider on the track, and maybe if he did, Father Schofield would have had to come inside him, and that would have been the deciding factor. I think the second horse would have won, but maybe the best run in the race was the third horse, Tibra Gargamis, who led and stuck on very, very well. It was on the inside. Right, in that race, as I said, we only gave the 100. Race 4, well, we saw the favourite win here, First Seal, ridden by Bold Blake Shin. He said, no, I'm a jury to how the track's playing. He didn't go up near the lead. He sat a little bit past midfield from barrier 7 in a field of 12. When he got to the turn, he was in the perfect position, rounding up the leaders, coming widest on the turn, sprinting very quickly, getting past them, and winning by 2 3/4 lengths. We bet 11 to 8 on. We let you lay this $1.70 on. It started, they return it $1.50. I was $1.60. Good old Muggins here, and laying it in the outside ring at the end of betting, paying the penalty. There were, as well, look, none of the runners would have beaten this runner, but by the same token, there was only, well, I'm not going to say, well, there's only 8 lengths between first and second when they hit the line, but there were a couple of runners who more or less took no part here, and they were Abduction, number 6, who hasn't got out yet, and also Wine Tails, number 8, had barrier 1, not the place to be, ridden by the pumper, and when he eased off heels turning for home, instead of following Sapara through, he eased off heels the pumper. I think he might have erred in making that decision, and he never ever got a run until the race was all over. But the winner, First Seal, well, she'll just keep on improving. And in that race we gave, it was all right, and we gave 108. Race 5, we only gave 103 here, and well, it just goes to show you about these imports. A mate of mine, he's the best judge in Australia, he told me, not after the race, I get told a lot of things after the race. Did you see that? I thought that'd win. I knew it couldn't. After the ball's over is not worth a stamp. You've got to say it before the starter says go. And this fella, who is one of the best judges in Australia, I'm telling you now, he's a great mate of mine. He told me before the race, he said, this has got plenty on them. He said, on them, not on them. Yes, he did. He said, it's got plenty on them. It's got plenty on them. It's somewhat ridden by James McDonald, trained by Johnny Father O'Shea, and ridden by, as I say, McDonald, sat him behind them. It was hard to do what he did because instead of switching around their heels, he had to go, well, Hot Schnitzel couldn't cross Oman, who led on the fence, and directly behind them was Thump, and then we had the favourite Red Excitement, who was very disappointing, getting a very good run. On its outside we had Territory, and then inside it, but having to go in not close to the fence, but not the place to be by the same token, was the winner. It's somewhat, and only won by 1.3 lengths, beating the runner that was sitting on its outside, Rudy, the runner from Queensland, who was a very talented runner. It won the Villiers when it was down here last start, and coming from well back in the right section of the track was Gypsy Diamond. Well, Gypsy Diamond only trialled very average apparently, and made up a lot of ground. Oh well, I suppose the form is okay. That was the Liverpool City Cup. The next race we saw the running of the Group 1 Chipping Norton Stakes. It was won by the Avery contributor. I did an absolute poultice in this race. The only reason this runner got home was the ride. Was given a beautiful ride by McDonald. It went straight to the lead wary. He didn't want to be there, the rider said. It raced a bit keenly on him, and was a bit disappointing, but leading wasn't the caper there today. On its outside was 9th Legion, who we thought would lead. 5.5 star outside them. Then we had He's Your Man, well in the 1-1 by the time they got to the turn. Back on the fence we had Silent Achiever, not the place to be. And in that beautiful position was the favourite Contributor, who we saw win at Randwick last start. Just ease off the heels and get into that lovely position, well off the fence, getting around the leader's heels turning for home. Got past them, got that length and a half break, but only won by half a length from its stablemate, Hartnell, ridden by this boy, Jay Doyle, who they say is a whiz kid. He's a whiz kid. He's going to be the new kid on the block in the hickey hockey ranks. Watch out, boys. He might take over this kid. Well, is it going to go? Will it win the Sydney Cup, this horse? Maybe. Today could have been a little bit of a pipe opener or whatever the story mean. Not a practice go by any means. Not a practice go. The import, having its first start here, settled down, was eased. Well, it missed the kick. Well, Janu did miss the kick. It's just got no pace. It was last when they hit the ground. And easing out from a wide alley from barrier 14 and 15 runners was Hartnell, back to second last. I dare say, coming down the side, the run that was trapped wide in this race was Boban without any cover. And I dare say when they went out of the back straight and started to come down the side, if this runner, Hartnell, would have been eased out wide and let slide up and get on the back of Boban, it would have come off Boban's back, turning for home, and would have swooped right down the outside, and most probably won, because as it was, it only got beat half a length and moved right through the comic cuts. Instead of coming wide down the side, he sat behind them coming to the turn and went through the middle, and as I say, only failed by half a length. He's your man, who sat in fourth position, was only beaten 0.7 a length, running third. In that race, well, what was it? Well, Who Shot the Barman? Finished up running fourth, only beaten 1.3. Work it out, have a look at it, and you can come up with your own conclusions. Race 7, well, we saw another runner get into the perfect position. It was no fluke first up when it was big odds. Dan Sarai got into the perfect position, into about 6th or 7th position coming down the side and easing off heels coming to the turn. The runner that was 3 wide outside the leaders was My Sabile. I think they erred by saying they were going to ride a closer today. It's not its caper. They went forward from an outside alley, barrier 16 in a field of 17, and sat 3 wide outside the leaders by the time they hit the turn, and tucked in behind them, and a little bit similar to but it didn't win. A little bit similar to it's somewhat the second horse in this race, Cosmic Endeavour, sat behind them and didn't get off their heels, but had to go through the middle. Not that it was close to the fence, but it was a little bit hard to do. Whereas the winner got that good run, sucking up on runners that were a little bit wide and easing off their heels, getting to that better section of the track, turning for home, and finished a little bit too well for Cosmic Endeavour to beat it by 0.8 of a length. And coming from back in the field down the right section of the track was Mahara, making up good ground. But as I say, in the right section of the track. What else do you say in that race? No, I won't say anything more. And then we came to the last, and we saw, as I said earlier on, Ernest having to come through on the 18 pence from last position after hasn't any pace. Ernest flopped out of the barriers, was in last position coming down the side, never left the fence, made up a lot of ground. Press report, who they said was going to be ridden close with cover, when he saw he was going to be trapped very wide in the run, the jockey, Jay Collette, made the right decision for sure, because and eased back to second last position and came wide on the turn and rounded them up. Because if he would have tried to ride with cover, we had Floral Insight, who did better than the favourite, League Cordon Bleu, who had to switch back inside Floral Insight after turning. And Floral Insight, when they got to the turn, had moved off the fence, and the favourite, who was getting a suck in behind the 4 leaders, who were Caprosa outside, Floral Insight, Perfect Weapon outside it, and outside those, Big Buddy. The favourite switched inside Floral Insight, but Floral Insight beat it by a head when they got down to the line for 3rd position. And the others more or less had their chance. Perfect Weapon stuck on well. It ran 5th. It was on the fence all the way in the worst section of the ground, Maximilian, and barrier 1, but it got inside it, of course, Ernest, and was a better run. The winner, having the benefit of the best section of the track, was the deciding factor. Now, if you were betting there today, I hope you finished on the right side of the ledger. And now, if anyone wants to open up an account with me, all you have to do is have a look at my website. You can get in touch with me, and I'll always bet you the best. I'll look after you like you're a one another. Good evening.